And we are back. What is up? It is your friendly neighborhood Matt. And once again, we are taking a deep dive looking at how I created this artwork for Vader's world. And of course, it's my 30th anniversary of creating Star Wars official art. And I can't believe it's been 30 years. That is cray-cray, but I've kind of been asked to do this piece, kind of commemorating that for this upcoming art show that is happening in Germany. I'm so excited about it. So as you guys know, I've created a lot of Star Wars art over the years. What I think resonates most with people is the art that's more painterly, kind of with that movie poster, larger than life style, that has the texture and the colored pencils. And we've been taking a close look at how to achieve that. So up to this point, we have done the underpainting. And by doing that, of course, you can see here, adding in the darkest darks. From there, we've been adding in the washes, and the washes are transparent color. And you can see here the way we're kind of adding this in. But the idea is to create this underpainting. Here I was kind of planning out how I was going to have the overall kind of vibe of the colors. And of course, the technique that we're doing today, the trick is the opaque painting that we do on top. And opaque is where it's color straight out of the tube. Hanging out with Kip, he knows what opaque painting is. It's straight out of the tube, and it gets complete coverage. Now, before I do that, you can see me hamming it up here. No, not really. Although acrylic is non-toxic, it wouldn't hurt you if you ate it or drank it. But what I am going to do here, that I do sometimes at this stage, depending, is I will kind of spruce up a little texture. And I call it adding some zip. I don't know why I call it that. But I will take, and here it is just washes because it kind of, it is transparent wash, but by kind of, I don't know what you would call it, speckling it on, whatever you're doing, spackling, spraying, by giving it some zip. Because it's a larger puddle, it becomes less transparent, and you can kind of, it just adds... It adds texture, and it kind of grits up some areas, and sometimes there's areas that are a little too clean, or you maybe need something happening. You need some kind of detail without there being detail, without it being something that people would zero in on. And in some cases, it can add color, which is really good. So here, what's neat in some of the areas of Darth Vader, by not just adding white stars, by adding a little bit of color, when you look at stars in the sky, usually they have a tint to them. There are red stars, there are warmer yellowish kind of stars, or planets sometimes look like they're stars, but they're really planets. So adding a little bit of color, and because I was trying to steer in that part of Darth Vader's helmet, I wanted to have more. Okay, here we go. Hamming it up as always, Matt. You're getting all cray-cray, right? Kip says get back to work. So let's get back to it. Anyway, with some of the zip, I was trying to keep some of those orange areas just a little bit, adding a little bit more orange into the helmet there. So this right here, what I wanted to do, I wanted to have those Death Star lights kind of standing out a little bit and kind of pushing Princess Leia's head forward. I wanted to keep it in tune with the way the colors are steering. You can kind of see in the upper right-hand corner, it's orange kind of going into a hot pink, going into a purple, but I wanted to have it stand out. So normally what you do is you paint that opaquely, kind of like I'm doing here with the Star Destroyer lights, painting in yellow. Some of those I will add white on top if I want it to be really bright. You can see there's already some red opaque ones happening there, But again, this is yellow straight out of the tube, and it just kind of makes those lights beam. But the secret to why this works is because you have the transparent color underneath, and then you're painting opaquely on top for lights. This is actually a trick. It's this really bizarre, it's strange how it works, but it really does. This was actually invented by Renaissance painters, and they kind of discovered when you did, they might have still been using egg tempera back then, but either way, when you have like an oil glaze, the idea is that you're doing it transparently, and you can kind of see through the canvas or the board, and then by painting your lights on top opaquely, there's just something about it where it's light over shadow. French painters call it lean over mass, I think is what they call it. And there's just something about it where it just kind of makes illumination. Now on the other side where I added the yellow, here you can see I'm adding a blue wash, and I did this in a number of layers because when I did the yellow, because the lights were so small, they kind of looked kind of crusty. I didn't really like the way they were looking, so I added more of a yellow wash on top. So here on the other side of Boba Fett, I wanted to have additional kind of, those Death Star lights are just such a cool, it's like a motif. It's just a really cool design, so I wanted to have that on the other side of Boba Fett, and I did it with wash. So normally, opaques are straight out of the tube. Other than the yellow lights that you saw me do, I haven't really done a lot of the opaque yet. So here, in the case of Emperor Palpatine, what I'm doing first before I really get to those really bright, juicy, hot spots is I'm doing a white wash. And some of you might be thinking, wait, didn't we do washes last video? You're doing all these washes again. No, what these are going to be, these are leading into areas that will be more opaque, but sometimes there's a little bit of a glow or a softening. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll kind of pull out the lights first with a wash, and then I'll go in with more opaque highlight for some of those really extreme, like the highlights in the eyes. Now here with Palpatine, because he's got that kind of pasty skin that's colorless, I'm using white, a white wash, and in general you can kind of lighten any color by adding a white wash, but sometimes if it's straight up white, it will kind of have this pasty look. So sometimes it's best to mix an off-white that's a little bit closer to the color that you're trying to achieve. But in this case, especially for Palpatine, he's just got that pasty look, so it's going to work perfect for the desired effect. And I do this first, and then I kind of get lighter and lighter as I go. So this is kind of the first base here. You'll also notice as that was drying there, Kip's hanging out with me still, of course. Faithful buddy. So here I'm going to go again, and I'm going to lighten it up even more, building up those lights as they continue to get a little bit lighter. And that's really going to help. You can see how it's really kind of adding a nice 3D effect. And that is the trick of this painting that the Renaissance painters discovered, but a lot of movie poster artists will use this with acrylic, doing acrylic washes first, sometimes airbrush, and then the idea is by painting the highlights on top, it just really has this cool 3D effect. And you can see it happening here with the TIE fighters. It's really starting to make those TIE fighters look a lot more three-dimensional, pulling out the light, or I guess it's not pulling it out, it's not erasing it out like you would do perhaps with charcoal, it's adding it right on top. And when you do it first with that wash, because it's not completely opaque, it's actually, once it dries, you can see a lot of the color underneath coming through. So this is the secret. This is how it works. You can see here I'm adding in the lights. I'm using white straight out of the tube. This is gesso. And by adding just those little blips, it looks like tiny little lights. And this is the secret. This is why it works so well. A lot of times I'm telling my students when they're adding the washes, something you hear me say a lot is get rid of the white, because a lot of times what artists will try to do, because the board that you're working with or the canvas or the piece of Bristol paper, whatever you're drawing with, because it's already white, a lot of artists will just draw around those little white areas and then shade everything in. That's really hard to do. That's really hard to get really even shading and then keep those areas white. You also have things like smudging that happens and all of that. It's just really, it would be really hard to draw this Death Star and draw around those highlights and shade in everywhere else, but keep those areas light. That would be really hard to do. So this technique works really, really well. Get rid of the white, and then you can see here slowly, I don't know if you noticed that transition. Did you see how that transitioned from where it was before adding in the opaques to where they were added in after? So much more 3D. Next video. Oh, look at that. Getting crazy with the color pencils. And that is what's next. And there's some really cool effects you can do with color pencil to give it some pizzazz. Cannot wait for that. So please join me again next week. Listen, I just gave you the secret to what makes this technique really sing, really makes it stand out. So you need to give me a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you've got that notification bell on. You should leave me some comments down below. Let me know, what do you want to see for, obviously you want to see color pencils next. Anything else you want to see on this piece or other videos in the future, let me know. You should also share because you care. Have you seen all of the episodes of You Can Draw Star Wars? I believe there's 24 of them, and a couple years ago I re-uploaded some of them in higher quality so you can clearly see them and enjoy those again. Plus, Matt's class videos show all kinds of really cool techniques. The sketchbook challenge. Those challenges will help you fill your sketchbook with just awesome ideas, get some really cool creativity happening. I teach in the Creative Imaging and Illustration Department in MACA, the Media and Communication Arts program. It's at Macomb College. Hollywood is Dead. And of course, coming soon, Aladdin 3477, the first film. This is a movie trilogy that I have spent a lot of time writing, directing, all the things. It's coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. All right, the Force will be with you always. See you next week.